Hello, friends. I'm Anderson Marchak,
And I'm Ricardo Segura.
and we are the Panel Bros. Welcome to the panel.
Welcome to the panel. Yeah.
Well, here we are.
Yes, we are.
It is that time of the year again. It is around the time of the Oscars. That's
hmm
when this episode will air. And we have chosen that that's the time of the year that we like to reveal our top 10 best movies of the year. And it it's for several reasons. One, we like to build some hype for the Oscars because a
Oh,
lot of
yeah.
the movies we talk about do get nominated for Oscars. And then also, if we released our list in December, we end up missing a few because,
Yep. Absolutely.
yeah, that's the biggest reason. And I've been doing it like that for several years now, where I'll wait until Oscars time because it gives me that January, February, sometimes March time frame because
Yeah.
a lot of the movies that are nominated for all these award shows, they don't get released, and
Nope.
it's hard to see them. So,
Yeah. And you already know, like, it's great that we wait until this time because there's certain movies that just fall through the cracks, and I get to watch at the very last minute. When we were working on these lists, I remember texting you. I'm like, "Hey, I got to make a change." I was like, "I got to make a change." I said, "I just saw a movie that I had missed out on, and it was just fantastic, and it would be a shame for me not to include it on this list somewhere." So yeah, it's always a good thing. Some of these movies don't come out till late in the year, and sometimes they just fall through the cracks, and we try to do our best to catch up. Like, there's plenty of movies that I'm sure that I have missed for the year of 2024 that I am still actively trying to see, especially because the Oscars are coming around. So timing is very important, but I'm excited, man. I'm excited to talk about some of these movies that I could watch time and again.
yeah. So we did something a little bit different this year. We're not only gonna give you our top 10, but technically our top 20
Pretty
because,
much.
yeah, we're gonna do 10 honorable mentions apiece.
Mhm.
We didn't go through the task of numbering them because that's a lot of movies to rank.
Yeah.
Uh, so we've taken the liberty of just listing them in order of release for the year. We'll give you our
Mhm.
little notes as far as that goes. But without further ado, this is the Panel Bros top 10 best movies of 2024.
Yes.
Alrighty, so we're going to start with my honorable mentions. First up here, we have, I believe this is a found footage film that actually Ricardo told me about. I didn't get to until later on. I have Late Night with the Devil. So,
Ooh.
our boy, David Dastmalchian. So, I got that one there. This next one here is an Alex Garland movie. It's Civil War. I um I was hyped to see that movie, and in traditional Alex Garland fashion, it was really intense. There was a lot of really great scenes. The ending was kind of out of nowhere type deal.
Mhm.
I really would have liked some more backstory, and it
Okay.
probably would have made my top 10 with more backstory. But just an intense movie, and especially as a social commentary piece, especially here in the United States, had to
Yeah.
make it an honorable mention. Next up is a movie that folks have been hearing about for a while now. It's probably going to make some noise, maybe might make some noise at the Oscars, and that is The Substance.
Ooh. Yeah.
Um, Demi Moore's performance and also the visual effects. Uh, I had to put it on my list here. Next up, we have an animated feature. We have The Wild Robot, and
Oh,
ugh, the
I still haven't caught it yet, and I gotta watch it, man.
solid watch. So here's the thing. Um, Animated features, they typically just get nominated for best animated feature at the
Mhm.
Oscars. And The Wild Robot did get nominated for that, but it also got 2 nominations on top of that, so 3 total. Best original score and best sound. So the Academy really likes this movie to give it that many nominations. So The Wild Robot. I have another honorable mention here. It's another one that's going to make some noise, maybe at the Oscars, and we have Anora. And
Yeah.
so 6 Oscar nominations, but mainly for, I believe it's pronounced Mikey Madison.
Okay.
Mikey Madison. So mainly for her performance. I put it on the list. Um, Next up, we have a sequel, to a horror movie that I enjoyed. I think it was in my top 10 the year that it came out, but it's this year. It's an honorable mention. We have Smile 2. So
Yeah.
Smile 2, another honorable mention. This one I enjoyed a lot when I went to see it in the movie theater. I had time to let things calm down afterwards. So it didn't quite make my top 10, but it's an honorable mention, and it's Gladiator 2.
Mhm.
Gladiator 2. So it was nominated for Best Costume Design. Out of everything, I'm surprised that Denzel didn't get a Best Oscar nomination.
Yeah, that surprised me too. I really thought he had Best
Yeah.
Supporting Actor in the bag. I did.
Yeah. So didn't quite make that impact that people thought would happen. Either way, enjoyed the movie. Great sequel, by the way. Next up is something I didn't get to see till recently. It got 10 Oscar nominations, and it is an epic movie. It is over 3.5 hours long. I'm talking about The Brutalist. A lot of Oscar nominations. We got Best Picture, Best Director, Brady Corbet. We have Best Actor, Adrian Brody. Best Supporting Actor, Guy Pearce. Best Supporting Actress, Felicity Jones. The list goes on and on. Really long movie. Just epic. Great watch. And lastly, it's a period piece. I had to put it on here. It didn't quite make my top 10, but just as a watching experience, Nosferatu, Robert
Oh
Eggers.
yeah.
Yeah, Robert Eggers. So if I count right, those are my 10 honorable mentions for 2024.
Yeah, you got some good picks in there. They're going to sound familiar because I'm going to say some of them as well.
All righty.
So we'll get into my honorable mentions. We'll start off in January. Now, a lot of times when people think about the January movie slot, obviously it's like, oh, God. But every once in a while, you find a little gem, something you have fun with. And for me, that came out in January. I'm going with The Beekeeper with your boy, Jason Statham. Now, this isn't something that I would say is going...
I missed one.
Oh, go for it. What did you miss?
I'm so sorry. Daddy? All right, so we're not going to edit. We're live, folks. We're just going to
do it. What did you miss?
So one of the honorable mentions I missed was Transformers 1. Transformers 1.
Okay.
Yeah, it was an animated feature. Yeah, so Transformers 1 was the animated feature. And just to give a couple stats here, so Late Night with the Devil was March, Civil War was April, and all of my other nominations came out between September and December. So a lot of my honorable mentions were towards the end of the year. So sorry about that, folks.
It's all good, baby. That's how we do it. That's how we do it. But yeah, we'll go back. Again, Jason Statham, The Beekeeper. Again, this is one of those movies where, it doesn't require a thinking cap. And every once in a while, when I go to the theaters, and I got the opportunity to see this in the theaters, and it was kind of one of those things where I just wanted to go to the theater to see something. And I was like, hey, you know what? The Beekeeper's out. Let's go check it out. It was in January. Wasn't really a lot going on. And I walked out, and I remember hitting you up and saying, man, I had so much fun with that. And sometimes it's about the experience, right? Like I just had so much fun with it. And again, it's not something that requires a thinking hat. It was pretty much watching Jason Statham be the Terminator for an hour and a half with, David Ayer as director. And I was like, you know what? This was fun. I enjoyed this. Would I watch it again? Absolutely. So because of that, I was like, it'll go on my honorable mentions list. Following that, this came out in March 22nd of 2024. It is Ghostbusters Frozen Empire.
All right.
I don't think I need to say much. I think everyone knows that I have a huge love for the Ghostbusters franchise, and this was a movie, while I wish it would have been something I could put in my top 10, but I enjoyed it enough that I felt like it deserved an honorable mention. It just felt like I was watching the cartoon again, man. Like there was a lot of it that felt like I was just watching the animated cartoon, and it took me back a little bit. And it's kind of hard for me not to walk away from any Ghostbusters movie without having somewhat of a decent time. So I had to make sure that I gave that movie some love as well. Coming in May 3rd, I did not expect to enjoy this movie as much as I did. The Fall Guy with Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt. I had so much fun with this movie. One of the things that I enjoyed about this movie was that it wasn't what I was expecting at all. I don't know what I was expecting from this movie, but I remember laughing so much throughout that I was just so highly entertained. And I thought it was going to be this story of him going on this mission, pretending to be someone he's not. And then it wasn't that. And it just happened to be really entertaining. And also, it's a huge love letter to stunt teams. And it's I think that was the most important aspect of that movie, was showing the love to stunts and everything that goes into filmmaking in that aspect. And I think it was a nice love letter to them. So I had to give them an honorable mention.
Yeah,
Coming
and
in at
yeah, to interject there, also like people have just been rallying for stunts to be
yeah.
recognized at award shows, especially the Oscars. So I
Mhm.
feel like that had a little bit to do with it as well.
Absolutely. And it was something that I appreciated. So again, when I watched it, not only was it a highly entertaining movie, I do like that love letter. And I
Yeah.
felt I appreciated enough to give it a mention. Coming in also from May 3rd was I Saw the TV Glow. This movie
Mm.
is a very, very interesting movie, but it's one of those movies that I feel different people could interpret differently. I had conversations with a few friends of people who had watched it and enjoyed it, and just kind of getting their read on the movie and my read and seeing how they were different. And I found that so interesting. And I highly enjoyed it on what it was saying, the lessons behind it. So because every once in a while, I do enjoy watching a movie that has a deep message rooted into it. Every once in a while, I want to see a movie like The Beekeeper, and then sometimes I want to see a movie with a deep rooted message that even if I can't relate to it or connect with it personally, I can understand there's many others that do. So I had to give that movie some love. Coming in on June the 7th was Bad Boys Ride or Die.
All right.
I had this again. This is another one of those movies, thinking cap completely off, but I had so much fun, and it was a reminder of what two individuals, or I should say just actors in general, when they have amazing chemistry, it translates so well across the screen that you can take a movie that may not have the strongest script that you've seen played out on film, but just enjoy yourself so much because of the chemistry of the cast involved. And Will Smith and Martin Lawrence, they're top notch together, man. Like at this point in the game, they've been making these movies forever, and they're still as funny, as entertaining as they are. And I couldn't help but just enjoy myself. I was like, you know what? You get an honorable mention, not top 10, but you get an honorable mention regardless. Coming in from June 14th is my first animated picture on my honorable list. Inside Out 2. Inside Out 2, for those who don't know, obviously, I was a huge fan of Inside Out 1. We talked about this, how the themes, are really, really great for adults, people who have a deep understanding for it. Kids don't really understand too much just yet, but they will as they get older, and I love that experience. Inside Out 2, very similar thing. We get to explore something like anxiety, right? And
Yeah.
when you see the trailer, and anxiety is the silly little character, but throughout the movie you just get this sense of understanding, and I think many of us have endured anxiety at one point or another. So I enjoy that an animated picture can take something as serious and legitimate as anxiety, something that adults deal with, and young people as well, and to put that in a movie that works. So Inside Out 2 definitely gets some love from me. Coming in as another honorable mention from September 20th, The Substance, a movie that you named as well.
Oh
The
yeah.
Substance, man. This was another movie. This was a movie that I actually battled a little bit in my top 10. It went in my top 10. It came out of my top 10, in my top 10, out of my top 10. The only reason it's just in my honorable mentions is that when it comes to body horror, I'm very squeamish. I'm very, very squeamish. So I think the movie has incredible performances. I think the themes are fantastic. I think it's a great movie to watch and have an understanding of what it's telling you. And again, it lays it on pretty thick. But it's body horror, so it's going to be difficult for me to watch it again. So that's the only reason that I took it out of my top 10, because I was like, oh man, am I going to watch this anytime soon? I was like, I don't know. That body horror stuff kind of gets to me. I love horror, don't get me wrong, but body horror just makes me uncomfortable. There was a couple times where I definitely kind of looked up at the ceiling, kind of have, rub my eye a little bit, kind of like, oh, I don't want to see it. It's kind of gross, but definitely gets a mention. I'm very happy that it's getting the Oscar attention that it's getting. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and so now we can talk about this. What a win for the horror film community.
Absolutely.
Like I mean, obviously the Academy's recognized horror over the years, so now we're talking like a body horror film.
Yeah, dude, body horror.
And I 5 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture.
Yeah.
And then Demi Moore, which people are saying she might actually win the Best Actress Oscar.
Yeah.
Like,
I think it's close.
What a win for
close.
horror, and what a win for genre films
Mhm.
in general, just because they all got nominated,
Absolutely. Again, when I was watching the movie, this was already after they made all those announcements. And as I'm watching it, I'm like, I can't believe the Academy nominated this for Best Picture, not because the film isn't deserving of it, but it's so different in retrospect of what kind of movie it is. Again, horror genre we've
Right.
seen before, but like a body horror movie where it exploits certain aspects of Hollywood and everything else. Like that got nominated. So major kudos to the film.
Yeah.
Had to talk about it. Another horror for me coming up as my next film, found footage style, VHS Beyond. I
Right.
loved this movie, man. I remember telling you about it, and I was like, hey, man, like I've seen the VHS movies, and this might be my favorite one. Because you know me, I'm a huge sci-fi guy, and this kind of tackled the sci-fi genre, the sci-fi horror genre. And to watch all these directors come together and make these different projects and have it all based around sci-fi. And it was so unique, some of the stuff they were able to do. And it was so awesome to see that even, you know, as late as this movie comes out in 2024, they're still finding creative ways to make found footage exciting. Because let's be honest, there was a period in time where kind of found footage felt like it was over. Like it's like, oh, we're kind of done with the found footage. It doesn't really work anymore. Like, how do we explain filming and everything else, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I was very pleased that when I walked away from this, I was like, oh no, the VHS, or I should say the found footage genre, still has legs. You just need to find a way to utilize them. And I feel like VHS Beyond did that. So I was very excited to have this in my
Yeah.
honorable mentions.
Just to let you know, I did watch that.
Yeah. Oh, dude,
Yeah.
the stork, man, the stork. It's so good.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack.
There
So
is a lot.
so
Absolutely.
but to your point, I guess Late Night with the Devil can count as found footage. That was on
Yeah,
my honorable mention list
it's
too.
an interest. It's an
It's
interesting
in
mix
between
between found
there.
footage. Yeah.
Yeah, it's in between, but yeah, I like the pick. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan, man. I like it. Coming in again, for now we are in November. More recently, Gladiator 2.
Right.
That was another film that you named as well. I thoroughly enjoyed the movie. Again, it just, you know, it just didn't make it into my top 10, but that's okay. It's a nice honorable mention. Denzel Washington, like you, I really thought best supporting actor nomination. I really, really believe that was going to happen. Ridley Scott continues to prove that, like, it doesn't matter, and we've learned this with guys like George Miller too. It doesn't matter how old a director is according to Hollywood standards or society. Like, oh, that director's really old, they've been doing this a long time. Ridley Scott is one of those directors, man, that when he's on, he's on. Like when he's on, he's on. And we got a great, you know, a period piece. Like again, the period pieces don't come that often anymore.
Right.
So I did thoroughly enjoy it. It had a lot of resemblance, obviously, to Gladiator 1, which I think is a masterpiece. And certain things that, you know, felt very similar, some subtle changes, some continuation of the story. So I had to give it some love. It is in my honorable mentions. And my last honorable mention on the list, I would have to include, or my wife would kill me, is Wicked.
Right.
Wicked was a lot of fun, man. I'm a big fan of musicals. I am sorry to say I have not seen it on stage yet. I do plan on doing that. So my first experience with this story was on film. And it was one of those experiences that the experience started the moment you walked in the movie theater. You know, remember when Oppenheimer and Barbie came out, that experience? I remember going to see Wicked and everyone was dressed in the colors. You had green, you had pinks, you had a lot of people who were a fan of Broadway there with t-shirts. Like it was such a great experience, a fun experience, that alone added to the movie. And just the raw talent of everyone involved in that film was fantastic, and I look forward to Wicked too. So I had to show Wicked some love in here, man.
Yeah. Did you do the Glicked weekend where it was?
I did not do the Glicked weekend.
Barbenheimer Glicked. Yeah.
Nah, I think it was like a week apart.
All right, sounds good. All right, let's just have a recap here of our honorable mentions. I had Late Night with the Devil, Civil War, The Substance, Transformers 1, The Wild Robot, Anora, Smile, Gladiator 2, The Brutalist, and Nosferatu.
Yeah.
And your honorable mentions, Ricardo, please.
Yep. My honorable mentions as listed are The Beekeeper, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, The Fall Guy, I Saw the TV Glow, Bad Boys Ride or Die, Inside Out 2, The Substance, VHS Beyond, Gladiator 2, and Wicked.
Yeah, there we
Wicked.
go. All right, here we are with the top 10 list now.
Yes.
Folks, this is what you've been waiting for. The Panel Bros official top 10 best movies of 2024. So the way we're going to do this is just we're going to share screenshots here, and then that's how we're going to announce it. So we have my top 10.
I don't know the list. I don't know what you have. I'm excited.
Here we go.
Ooh,
Wicked, number
Yeah.
10. All righty. So for those of you that don't know, I do have a theater background, not musical theater, but theater in general. And unfortunately, I did not get to go see this in the movie theater.
Oh
Excuse
no.
me. Nope, I apologize. I did not get to see this in the theater, but I
Okay.
did get to see this in the movie theater. So, yeah, so I went, and it was just incredibly emotional. And my main thing when I went to go see it was everyone's doing a great job. Ariana Grande is going to get nominated for an Oscar. That's what's something
She
that
was fantastic.
I was so set on, and that did happen. Wicked ended up getting nominated for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 Oscars. We have Best Actress Cynthia Erivo, Best Supporting Actress Ariana Grande, and also got a Best Picture nomination. So
Yeah, baby.
may or may not make some noise at the Oscars, but just such an emotional experience. And it is hard to do a musical on film. It's
Yeah, it is.
hard. So I thought they did a great job. And then we have another one on the way. So
Absolutely. And look, Cynthia rocked it, dude, because we talk about it. It's very hard, but she sang live on set with all this wire work and training. Like, how unbelievable. Like, Cynthia crushed it. Ariana Grande was so funny, so entertaining.
Right?
The emotional parts were exactly what they needed to be. They were moving. And Cynthia as well, just an unbelievable powerhouse and great presence on screen. And every time she sang, you just felt it in your core, man. She had my eyes watered up quite a bit in that final act. That final act hit hard. I can't wait for part 2, man.
Yeah. All righty. Ricardo, you have your number 10 ready to go here?
I'm ready to go.
All righty.
My number 10 is Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, bro.
All
Let me tell you
righty.
something. I was so excited. If I've yelled from the rooftops as loud as I can that Mad Max is one of the greatest movies ever. Mad Max is unbelievable. Mad Max Fury Road is unbelievable. So I was so genuinely excited to be able to go back into that world. And I remember the reports of them saying, hey, we're doing a spinoff with Furiosa, and not knowing what that would be. Is Charlize coming back? What are we doing? And they're like, oh, it's going to be a prequel with your girl, Anya Taylor-Joy, who is an absolute star, just absolutely crushing it on the scene right now. And George Miller is back doing what I was talking about earlier, like proving to the world that like a great director is a great director, man. And he brought it again. It is somewhat different for Mad Max Fury Road. I think Mad Max Fury Road relies heavily on just how epic everything looks and feels. And Furiosa had a little bit more story and a little bit more character development with her character and seeing how she came to be. And it was just wonderful, man. Like it was one of those movies that I'm like, it showed me that I'm ready to explore this world. And Chris Hemsworth having the time of his life as a villain. Chris Hemsworth is another one of those guys. Great performance, man. And like, I can't imagine how exciting it was for him to be able to be part of the Mad Max saga. They talked about it, like what Mad Max means in Australia, like what it means for people in Australia. So for him to be able to be in this film as the villain was so great. And again, Chris is one of those guys where I feel like I love when he gets to stretch his muscles acting wise. And I feel like he just had a blast here, dude. So Furiosa had to absolutely get on my top 10 list for sure.
All righty. We're going to go ahead with my number 9 here.
Yeah. I'm ready.
Okay. We have Superman, the Christopher Reeve story. So
nice. We got a doc on here. Oh, I like it.
A documentary. Yeah, and it's kind of hitting a couple checks for us. Ricardo's a huge Superman fan. We're both
Oh yeah.
superhero fans, obviously. So for me, with the Christopher Reeve story,
Mhm.
it was just such an emotional experience for me. And Ricardo, you remember I was texting you about it. I said,
Yeah.
"Oh my gosh, this movie is a gut punch," because
Yeah.
it's just obviously it's just tragic the life that
Mhm.
Christopher Reeve went through after he had the accident. But he still continued to do work, not just acting, but just work in the community and such. And there was aspects about his life that I did not know about that I thought that the movie explored. And there was one thing that was just super emotional for me, and it was the fact that they explored the friendship between Robin Williams and
Mhm.
Christopher Reeve, and how much Robin Williams was there for him, um, both before the accident, but especially after the accident. And I don't want to spoil anything, but there was a couple things stated in the movie, and obviously, um, we know that Robin Williams passed away eventually as well, but there were some things that people stated, Glenn Close in particular, um,
Yeah.
about Robin Williams that I don't want to give away right now. But yeah, just such an emotional experience. Any fan of those Superman movies and Christopher Reeve and such must watch, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I'll be completely honest with you and everyone else. When you kind of broke down like some of the emotional beats, and as you mentioned, Robin Williams, I haven't seen it yet, and it hasn't been because of ignoring it. It's one of those things that I know it's going to hurt, and
Oh
I
yeah,
know it's going to be an emotional gut punch. And um, I'm one of those people that I got to be in the right frame of mind in order to
that's all
watch something
right.
like that.
Yeah,
And I know it's going to rock me, and I'm like, okay, I'm not there yet. Like I
yeah,
like
yeah. It's
as weird as that sounds, I'm like, I'm not there
right.
yet. I'm
It's
not there
it's
yet. I
not
can't
that
do
they
it.
just mentioned Robin Williams. No, they were like, this is Christopher Reeve's best friend, basically.
Yeah,
And they mentioned Robin a lot in the
yeah.
movie. And it wasn't like, it wasn't like they were taking advantage of the fact that Robin Williams passed away as well. No, it was
Mhm.
these two men were connected, and they
Yeah.
had to mention it. So absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna watch it as soon as
Yeah.
possible. But I've
Yeah.
legitimately been scared. Like I know I'm gonna just sob.
Yeah.
And I'm
It's
like, all right,
okay.
I'm not
And
there yet.
um I don't talk about this too often, but um I mean, who wasn't a fan of Christopher Reeve as Superman,
Yeah.
growing up?
Yeah.
For me, when the accident happened to him, that was a really emotional experience for me. He didn't pass
Mhm.
away,
Yeah.
but that was like my hero. It was like,
Yeah.
this is it was such a spiritual experience for Hollywood as well, and for us as viewers, because Superman can't get hurt, right?
That was I'm glad you said that because
Yeah,
when I was a kid, and I remember seeing it in the newspapers. We're going back,
right.
seeing my parents read it in the newspapers and being very confused because at such a young age I didn't understand because that was Superman.
Right.
And I'm glad you mentioned that because that was something that bothered me as a kid. I was like, well, he's Superman. I couldn't make that disconnect. He was my introduction to the character. And at that age, when I saw what had happened, and I'm like, it didn't make sense to me. So again, there's a bunch of feelings there that I'm like, I can't see it yet. I'm not ready.
All
So I
right.
was like, yeah, yeah.
All right.
But soon, but soon, but soon.
All right. Next up.
Oh yeah.
So we have
I'm ready.
Ricardo's number 9 movie.
Number 9, baby. Number 9. I had fun with this one. Honora, baby. Listen.
Yes.
Mm, okay, first of all, performance-wise, Mikey Madison
Ugh.
was absolutely just blowing up all over socials. Everyone talking about performance, award recognition, and
Right.
it was being built up. And you never want this to happen. You never want something to be built up, 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 and up. And then when you finally get to it, you're kind of like, oh man, you guys made it seem like it was like this amazing thing. And I saw the film, and she's absolutely worthy of every single amount of praise that I've read. She absolutely crushes it. Fantastic performance. And that's the driving force of this movie. For me as a whole, I was so entertained by this movie. I would watch this numerous times. And that kind of went into my barometer a little bit with my top 10. There have been times where we've done top 10s in the past where I'm kind of like, I may never see this movie again, but it'll still make my top 10. This top 10, I kind of want to pull up movies that I could see myself watching over and over that I enjoyed a lot. And Honora was one of those movies. I remember texting you as I was watching this movie after like the first 30 or 40 minutes. And I was like, hey, man, this got this went in a different direction. Like this is really humorous at times. It's got dark humor, and then it's very tragic. And I love when a movie can have that balance. You have this, you have your first act, which is building this relationship, and you're kind of rooting for her a little bit, and then it becomes this almost dark humor kind of aspect, and you're like, wait, is this going to get too dark? And they're like, no, they're keeping it light with comedy, and you're like, oh, okay, we're keeping it light. We got comedy. What's happening is pretty bad, but we're keeping it light. And then the final act, it kind of takes that turn and just becomes really tragic, and the closing shot just kind of breaks your heart. And as a whole, I was like, man, like to be able to have that balance and weave through the way that they were able to weave through it in a way that it's not jarring and it doesn't clash, I have to give it credit and put it on my top 10 list at number 9. And again, Mikey just absolutely crushed it performance wise.
Yeah, so Nora has 6 Oscar nominations. We have Best Picture, Best Director, Best Original Screenplay, Best Editing, Best Actress for Mikey Madison, and then Best Supporting Actor, Yura Borisov, the man who played Igor. We have Director Sean Baker, and the only other movie I've seen that he did was The Florida Project, and that was a solid movie as well. So, alrighty. Nora getting some love.
Yeah.
We have now arrived at my number 8. So here we go.
I'm excited. What do we got?
Alien Romulus.
Ooh.
Alien Romulus, number 8. So this movie was directed by Fede Alvarez.
Yeah, baby.
Our guy that did Evil Dead 2013, a movie that we've done a breakdown for on the channel here. This comes down to one aspect for me, and that's, I mean, it kind of gives it away here. The movie was nominated for Best Visual Effects at the Oscars, and Fede he uses those practical effects, man. And this one had a little bit of CGI as well, but he does both. He does the practical and the CGI. But I thought that he did that really well. There was a couple scenes involving the face huggers that I had to confirm with you. Have they ever done this before? And you were like, no, they never did that before.
I've never seen that before. And that was, and I'll talk about it in greater detail, but yeah, I've never seen that before.
Yeah. So something with the face huggers. There was like a surprise cameo, and that was the one where I was like, okay, that was the only thing that was the weakest part of the movie for me. The surprise,
for me as well.
The surprise cameo. And you know what? The ending was so wild. I enjoyed it. A lot of people were like, we hate this ending. I was like, you know what? It's so wild it works.
Yes, so that's wild. What it was. It was so wild that it worked.
And I believe it was done. It was meant to be like, what was it? After Alien 1, or before Alien 2, something like that. It was around the same time.
Yes.
So
it's very, very, very early on in the Alien timeline.
Yeah, and I thought they did a good job of trying to mimic that, down to the way that the cast was, and also it was a young cast. Like that was a surprise too. Like
that was very interesting.
Yeah, and they went for kind of like that throwback feel, that kind of Goonies situation. So, yep. So that's it for me for Alien Romulus, number 8.
Yeah, I love it.
Alrighty. So next up is Ricardo's number 8.
Yeah. I'm ready. Let's go. Hail Caesar. We doing Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Again.
All right.
I was very hesitant about this one, only because I absolutely adore the trilogy and the sequels, that were done by Matt Reeves, where he worked on part 2 and part 3 of that trilogy. And I was absolutely blown away. Andy Serkis, amazing performance. So when they announced this, I was kind of worried. I was like, oh, man, we're going back to that world. Is Matt coming back? Is Andy going to be involved? I was very hesitant. And I was happy to say that when I went and saw this at the theater, I was like, oh, no, like this feels in line with that trilogy. It doesn't feel like it was made by the same director, but it does feel in line with that world, this great continuation. And it continues to show me why I love this franchise so much. And I love these new characters. That was another thing too, is like we're getting introduced to new characters in this world that we love so much. And I ended up really, really enjoying these characters and seeing a lot of the Easter eggs of things that may come to pass, things that we've seen throughout history with this franchise. and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I've probably seen this movie already. I've probably seen it 3 times already because I saw it at the theater, I saw it home by myself, and then I showed my wife. I said, "Hey, you got to watch this. It's fantastic." So I was very happy to see this movie do as well as it did. I'm hoping we get a sequel. I'm really hoping for it. And it's got my boy Kevin Durant in it, and he's one of those guys. He's one of those actors that I'm always happy to see him doing great things, and to see him in like such a significant role as Proximus Caesar was great. Even though he's the bad guy, it was fantastic. So Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is on that spot for me.
Alrighty, we have now arrived at my number 7.
Yeah.
Here we go. Deadpool and Wolverine.
Ooh, all right.
So,
Okay.
Ricardo, you did not name this yet. So
Not yet.
Not yet. You have not named this. You may not name this. We don't know. We'll see. But all righty. So when I went to see this in the movie theater, super entertaining. It was like, we got to go opening weekend because it's Hugh coming back to the role, and then spoiler, posts are just out of control now, with movies. And especially now, since this is, it's kind of like a part of the multiverse saga in the MCU. It is, because it's the first MCU Deadpool movie. It's the first MCU movie with Wolverine in it. There's a whole bunch of firsts as far as this movie goes. And you don't know this, but when you go to see the movie, it's like a homage to the Fox superhero movies that they did, not just the X-Men movies.
Yeah.
And I don't want to spoil all the cameos and such. If you haven't seen it yet, you'll find out. Logan was an incredible send-off for Hugh Jackman. An incredible send-off. And they took a chance on bringing him back for this movie, but it was excellent. It was great. It was just a lot of fun. Is it a masterpiece or anything like that? No, not a masterpiece, but just an overall fun movie. I had a good time, and that's what it came down to. Is this something I would watch again? Yes, this is something I would watch again. Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds just having the time of their lives.
Those boys and their chemistry, man.
Yeah, and you brought something up. What was it? The scene in the car?
Yeah,
just straight acting.
It's if you put Hugh Jackman in a car, he's going to act his butt off. You know what I'm saying? You put him in a car, you're gonna get Prisoners. You're gonna get
there we go.
Wolverine like that. Like he gets shouty and he yells at you. It's my favorite scene in the whole movie. My favorite scene in the whole movie is that scene in the car where you have this monologue and it kind of breaks all the comedy for a second, and it's great. And yeah, look, Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds, their chemistry carries this movie. It's the driving force behind the movie. And obviously you've got a lot of cameos, some great surprises, and you brought up a good point. That was one of the main reasons we had to watch it as soon as possible. Like, I would love to be able to say like, oh, I'll go watch it as soon as I get an opportunity. But with a movie like Deadpool and Wolverine, we had to get out there because like the internet is a savage. It does not care. So unless you're planning on going cold turkey from the internet, which is very difficult for a lot of us to stay updated on things, it's like, hey man, you're going to get spoiled. And spoilers were everywhere. So I made sure to go see this as soon as possible to enjoy the cameos. If you haven't heard about these cameos yet, I don't know how you have it, but I'm not going to spoil them for you either. But yeah, Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds, they took a gamble because after Logan, I remember when they made the announcement, I was very cautious. I was like, is this something that they want to do? Is it going to be disrespectful? Is it going to hurt what we saw with one of the greatest swan song goodbyes to a character with Hugh Jackman as Wolverine? And that's subjective. There are some people that feel they didn't enjoy it. There's some people that loved it. But Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds definitely came back because both of these two loved these characters and wanted every opportunity to work together. So you got to give them credit where credit's due.
Alrighty. So we're here at Ricardo's number 7.
Yeah, this one surprised me. This one surprised me.
Alrighty.
Yeah, Rebel Ridge, bro.
All right.
Listen, we're pulling up a Netflix original release on my top 10. Rebel Ridge was one of those movies that I saw a lot of praise online. I wasn't aware of what Rebel Ridge was. I just kept seeing people talk about this new movie, Rebel Ridge, Rebel Ridge. The reviews were extremely high. If I'm not mistaken, it's in the 90s somewhere. Like the critic score is very high and the viewer score is very high. And I was like, man, what is this movie? And I kind of put it on. I don't even think I saw a full trailer. I don't recall. I think I went in pretty blind. Excuse me, which is always a great viewing experience. And I went in, and one of the first things I noticed was that Aaron Pierre,
Oh,
the lead of the movie, had this incredible presence on screen. This performance that I don't even know how to put it into words, because this wasn't this overly emotional type of character where you get to see people pull a lot. He just had this very strong presence
great
and
presence.
feeling like I've never seen this man before this film, and immediately I was like, that's a star. Like, and he carries, and the movie also happens to be very well written and a very tight movie. And what I thought was going to be a like 2024 version of Rambo, because that's what I thought based off what I was watching. I was like, oh, is this just gonna be Rambo? And it wasn't. It was so different. It was so unique. Something as small, minor plot point that I'm gonna just put out into the world is that he doesn't use deadly force the entire movie.
Right.
And when you think of something like that, you go, well, how can you make an action movie work, a thriller work, or this kind of movie with that guarantee? And how am I satisfied as a viewer? And they find a way, and a lot of it relies on Aaron's performance. Aaron's performance was so strong, it was no doubt in my mind that this guy was going to blow up. And the very big project he got announced for after that, for many people who don't know, is Green Lantern John Stewart. Like immediately, people like, and he got the role. So I wish him all the luck there. But as a movie, it was fantastic. It was everything that it needed to be. A great action piece, great dramatic moments, and you can't help but root for this character. I was surprised that it ranked at this point on my list. I was like, this is pretty high, but it was a movie that I've already seen numerous times. And again, I want to kind of focus on this list with movies that I know I'm going to watch again, movies I have watched again, how much did I enjoy watching them. And this was a movie that I recommended to numerous people. I watched it numerous times. I watched it with my wife. I sent it to a couple of my friends. They watched it, and nothing makes me happier than recommending a movie to friends, and you know this feeling, and them hitting you back and going, wow, I love that movie. So this was that movie that I got plenty of texts from friends being like, hey man, you recommended Rebel Ridge, right? I'm like, that was me. And they're like, that movie was awesome. And I was like, right? So had to give it some love.
All right. Solid watch there. Shout out to Aaron Pierre. That's going to be our new Green
man.
Lantern.
So this will be the guy.
Yeah. All right. We've arrived at my number 6.
What we got?
Love Lies Bleeding.
This is a good one, bro. This is a good one.
So I heard so much about this movie.
Yep.
And the trailers were, it really focused on the bodybuilding aspect. And I was just like, okay, well, what is this movie about?
Yeah.
And I finally just sat down, and everyone just kept saying, you won't know what to expect when you go to see the movie.
Yeah.
Like the you might think the movie's about one thing, but it's gonna like really impress you with the direction that it goes. So I want to give a shout out to the director, Rose Glass. She did a great job. You know me, you too as well. I love a good original.
Yeah.
And it's an original. It's a romantic movie. It's a thriller. There's some horror aspects in it. Just with the framing and the way that it's shot, like it's a really good looking movie, and
Yeah.
it gets you with the visuals. What's her name here? Katie O'Brien in a star-making performance.
She's another one to watch for.
Killed it. Absolutely killed it. Kristen Stewart, just solid as always, but Katie O'Brien. And I read that they were looking for somebody who had bodybuilding experience already, and she did. So, she went hardcore to be able to get ready for this film. There's some aspects of the bodybuilding that I don't want to get into. I don't want to give it away, but they visualized it in a way that made it interesting to me, especially when there was enhancements used. Let's just put it that
Oh
way.
yeah. Yep. Yep.
um, so for me, just Love Lies Bleeding. I love the soundtrack too. It was set
Oh
in
yeah.
the 80s, so
80s,
they
dude.
gave
You
it
do 80s, we're good.
right. They gave us a score that sounded like the 80s.
Mhm.
And also this was another one where much like Alien Romulus, people were kind of turned off by the ending. I loved it.
Oh no, I
This
loved it.
ending,
I
this
loved it.
ending was nuts. And I said, you
Yep.
know what? I'll take it.
Yep.
I'll
It was
absolutely
great.
take it. So
It was
yeah,
great, man.
yeah, Love Lies Bleeding. And for those of you that don't know, Ricardo and I, we've been um, we've been involved in the gym for a number of years now,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
and you can't help but watch somebody do this, man or woman, and just be inspired when you see it.
Yeah,
You
dude. Like
know,
it's that gym culture, and the movie touches on that gym culture and whatnot.
right,
This is a great movie, man. This is a great movie, and like you said, as I was watching the movie, I wasn't sure where the story was going. I was like,
right,
and I love that. I love that about film because it happens very often where we can kind of figure out where the story's going, and I love when a movie can kind of, you know, push me to the side and say, no, you don't know where this is going. Like, hang on for the ride. And they had some great visuals in this movie. They had some great visuals, some surprising visuals when we're talking about the pump and everything else. And
yeah,
again, yeah, the end is very interesting. And there are movies that I do think that will take a turn like this movie, and sometimes it doesn't work, but this one worked. This one absolutely worked. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. So I'm glad that you put it on the list because this is a good one.
yeah. All right, we have Ricardo's number 6 now.
Yes, 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 yes. Number 6. Let's do it.
All right,
Let's do it. Yeah. Alien Romulus, baby. I was
all
so excited to
right.
talk about Alien Romulus. Fede Alvarez. You're my boy. You're my boy, Fede. Over here from Evil Dead 2013 that I praised to the high heavens. And I was so excited when they announced him as director for Alien, because for one of the major reasons that you complimented was I think we both kind of knew
Right.
if Fede was coming onto this project, we were going to get some great practical effects. That was one thing that we were very excited for. And again, it's never a dig at computer VFX. It's always great when they can work together, and sometimes they're necessary. But we knew if Fede is working on this, we're going to get some great practical effects. We got great practicals with the face huggers. We had great practicals and puppeteering with the xenomorphs.
Oh yeah.
That was so awesome to see the actors, to see the characters share the screen with the xenomorph and know that they're physically there. Like, you can feel the difference in the atmosphere. And Fede did such a great job with an IP that he clearly loves. Just like with Evil Dead, he was able to pay homage while still giving us things that were new. And I love that. We talked about it. There were some scenes, I don't want to spoil them. There were some scenes where we talked about, like, I've never seen that before. How many Alien films have we had up to this point? And I've never seen anybody execute that before. I can name at least 3 things that were so unique to this film that I hadn't seen in the Alien project before, that I was like, wow, like, that's such a great addition to this franchise that is new, it's fresh, while still having things in there that are familiar. So that was fantastic. As you said, there is a certain cameo that kind of I remember seeing in the theaters, and
Yes.
I kind of got pulled out a little bit. Like,
Right.
I was like, oh, like, that's a little jarring. I got pulled out a little bit, and it's because of the execution of what they did with technology. Like, it was a technological thing where it's kind of jarring, but the movie in itself never lost me. And usually when you see something like that, it can be jarring to the point where, like, oh, I'm kind of out. But, like, no, I was right back in. I understood what they were doing. I was right back in, and I loved it. I'm a huge sci-fi guy. I love the Alien franchise. That Alien franchise has gone up, it's gone down, and up again. And it shows me again. I always love when I can see an IP that has been around for a long time, that some people have given up on, and show that it still has legs. You get a great mind behind it, you can make something special. And I think Fede just did just that. We got new characters, we got young characters. Many people were upset about this, because I remember seeing people like, oh, why is it this young cast? Like, it's a bunch of kids. And I'm like, it works for the story. It works for that. And also because I had no idea who was gonna make it. Like, it's so refreshing to watch a movie, especially a horror movie or an alien movie, where you don't necessarily have these like big gigantic names. So you're not like, oh, well, this person's clearly gonna make it because they're Tom Cruise, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So very happy for numerous reasons. Great addition to the IP. The ending, crazy. Loved it.
Yeah.
Kind of throw some people for a loop, but I was like, no, this movie is horror. We're gonna touch all aspects of horror, and I absolutely adored it. Great practical effects, great visual effects, great characters. I hope to see these characters again in the future. And Fede, round of applause, buddy, because you killed it, and you continue to show me that you're one of those directors that if you're working on an IP, almost like Denis Villeneuve with his movies like Blade Runner, that you guys clearly have a love for it.
Yeah.
And whenever you get an opportunity to make it, you're going to give us something that the fans will enjoy.
All righty, we're here at the top 5.
Ooh, this is the exciting part.
This is my my number 5 movie.
Okay.
Furiosa, a Mad Max
baby.
saga.
I'm so happy that's made it.
Higher than I thought it was gonna be. When I first saw it, I had high expectations because, like Ricardo, I love Mad Max Fury Road. And we've done a breakdown for Mad Max Fury Road here on the channel, and we raved about it. We talked about it. One of the things we pointed out was it was nominated for 10 Oscars, and it walked away with 6 of them. They were all technical, but still, you know, it walked away, and it was just like such a win for genre films, and it's just such a great experience. So I'm walking into this movie thinking, all right, George Miller, I believe in you. Don't let me down, you know? So I watched it, and there was a couple things where I was like, I don't know if I got that. And I needed to kind of let it sink in a little bit, you know? And after I let it sink in, it was like, you know what? No, this was really solid. Like, just visually, it's just a lot to take in again, because he did it again. You know, he did it again. He put us into that world. And the only critique I had is, you know, what happened that you couldn't have had Charlize in the lead?
I thought we were keeping Charlize.
You know, that's the only thing, because there's a little bit of bleed over between Furiosa and Fury Road at the very end. And it was just kind of like, well, if we did that, why couldn't we've had Charlize? But I get it. He wanted to just distinguish that time frame of the younger Furiosa. And if to do that, he needed a much younger actress, you know. And let's be clear here. Charlize is aging wonderfully, bro. You know, they may or may not have had to do any de-aging for her.
No, if any, it would have been so minimal. Like, it's like, oh man, like she looks great.
Right. But you know, to get to that point there, maybe he just wanted a different face, so we could be like, okay, so this is Furiosa before she becomes who we saw in Fury Road. And to do that, I need a different face. And all right, that's fine, you know. Chris, you already said it. Chris Hemsworth, excellent performance, just great visuals, you know, really emotional story. That ending is dark too.
Dude, very dark.
Yeah.
Like, went darker than I thought it was gonna go.
Yeah, really dark ending, but just epic again. George Miller, you're ridiculous. I can't wait to see what he does. Like, and let's, you know, so I got to mention it now. No Oscar nominations.
Wild.
I know, no Oscar nominations, but George Miller, just such an excellent filmmaker, and we're always going to wonder if this is what he did for the world of Mad Max, what would he have done for Justice League? Justice
League, the one that got away.
Yeah, we'll never know, but it's all good. So my number 5, Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. Love Anya Taylor-Joy. Love her.
Very good.
Yeah. All right. So Ricardo's number 5.
Number five.
This was surprising to me because you had told me about this. Yeah.
My number 5 is from A24, man. That studio with Heretic.
Mm.
Listen, this came out of left field, my dude, because I heard people talk about it, and then I just didn't anymore. And I was waiting for it, and I was waiting for it. And I was like, okay, as soon as it's streaming, I'm gonna watch. As soon as it's streaming, and I'm like, man, when's it coming out? When's it coming out? And I decided, all right, I'm gonna bite the bullet and I'm gonna rent it. And I was just taken back. Again, this was another movie that I stayed away from a lot of advertising. So obviously we have Hugh Grant, who usually plays very quirky, lovable characters. You know what I mean? He can dip into other types of characters, but I always think of him like in a comical sense. And he is horrifying in this movie.
Oh yeah.
And the movie itself, first of all the performances in the movie are fantastic.
Yes.
Everybody. Hugh Grant, Sophie Thatcher, Chloe East. Sophie Thatcher, she's blowing up. I'm seeing her in more and more things, and I'm getting excited about that. I hope we see Chloe East as well, because she was also someone that was absolutely terrific in the movie. So you have these three characters, and that's pretty much your main cast. And anytime you have a cast that's that small, you need a tight script and you need great performances, and they crushed it. And this movie works for me because it's scary on a level that it's outside the norm of what usually scares me, right? Like I love horror movies and slashers and hauntings and et cetera, right? And this was something that was about like breaking the spirit of a person. And that was so scary to see these characters have to endure what they endured the entire movie. I'm trying to be as vague as possible because I feel like I still know individuals that haven't seen it yet. And I've already recommended it. Like I told people, I said, hey, this is going to be available on this streaming platform, March of this date. When it comes out, please watch it. It's absolutely fantastic. And when I watched it, I was so taken by it that I was like, man, I've got to include this on my list. I have to. And I couldn't stop talking about it. And that was another indication of how much I enjoyed it. I will be watching this again. I will more than likely be buying this on a physical copy, because I just enjoyed it that much. And if I have it on physical copy, I'm going to watch it over and over and over again, and I will praise it. I will pass it on to my friends. I wish I could talk more about it, but I think if I give too many details away, it takes away from that experience. I will say that just performance-wise, fantastic, and I love what the movie's talking about. Like it's such an interesting discussion of what the movie is talking about, what it's breaking down. And I wonder if there's any viewers who watched it who felt differently when the credits rolled. Like it's one of those movies where you might sit back and I wonder if the viewer feels like the characters in any sense where what's happening is also affecting the viewer as well. So I had to get this movie some love, man. And I will be buying this on physical copy.
So Ricardo had ended up sending me his list because I had to create these screen shares, these screenshots and such. And he sent me a new list because he watched Heretic.
Yep.
And it jumped all the way to number 5 for you.
5, dude.
On one watch. That's how much you enjoyed it.
On one watch. And I battled because this thing was going up and down the list because I kept doing the thing of like, okay, what am I going to watch again? What am I going to own? What am I? And I just kept fighting. And I kept fighting. And I was like, man, because like, again, it was an original, dude. Like it was an original film. And that always gets a lot more bonus points. It always does. Because again, I loved Alien Romulus. That is an IP, but I love it regardless. Furiosa, love that movie. It's an IP. You know what I mean? We've got numerous Mad Max movies. And when I watched this movie, I was like, it's an original piece. I haven't seen a movie like this, and I haven't seen a movie in a long time that I felt something where I was like, man, this is so interesting and so unique. And it was another one of those movies where I didn't know where it was going to go, man. I didn't know. And the movie, I will not spoil it, but there is quite a few twists in this movie, and each one of them work. Each one of them works. There was one that I will talk to you about off the air because I am not going to ruin it for anybody, but absolutely, I was like, all right, man, the writing is so well done because as a viewer, as soon as I think they're going left, they're going right. If I think they're going right, they're leaving the room. You know what I mean? Like just a great job. And I was very surprised that it jumped as high as it did, but I can't praise it enough, dude. Like this is one of my favorite movies easily.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah, so I saw it, and
Mhm.
it's, I mean, for all three performances are great, but
Great
yeah,
performances,
Hugh
dude.
Grant. Yeah, Hugh Grant's really
Haunting.
good. Yeah, he's really good. Alrighty. We have my number 4 now.
Yes. We're getting high up. We're getting high up.
It's The Fall Guy.
Oh, that's so high. That's
I
so good. That's so good.
Yes. I made it a point to not talk to Ricardo about this when I watched it
Yes.
because I knew it was gonna be on my top 10, and I
So
wanted
good.
to be able to talk with him about it on the air here. So, I had to look it up. The Fall Guy was loosely based on the 1980 series, which I didn't even know existed.
Yeah, I didn't know about it either.
It just But you know what? Ignoring that, it felt like an original movie to me,
Mhm.
when I saw it, and I had such a good time. I wanna say David Leitch, that's the director, and, oh, man, I don't know where to start, like, it's just
It's
such a
great.
f it's a fun action movie.
Yes.
It's got a love story. Emily Blunt's awesome. We have Ryan Gosling in the lead. I want to say Aaron Taylor Johnson. He's got a lot to do
Mhm.
in the movie as well. It's a murder mystery. It's got such action pieces as well. There's a commentary on stunt
Mhm.
work as well. You said a lot about it. It was in your honorable mention, but for me, just all those things added together, just really high up on the list for me. I had such a good time with this movie.
Oh,
I
yeah.
am gonna,
It's so
it's something I could just be like, you know what? I feel like watching this movie again, and I own it, by the way.
good.
I
Good,
went
good,
out and
respect.
got the physical media for it. Like, I had such a good time with this. I didn't even know it was based on something. It just felt like an
Yeah, I didn't
original
either.
movie. It felt like such an original movie to me. But I looked it up. It was just loosely
Okay.
based. But I just had such a good time. Like, what a fun movie! And oh, here we go. There's a there's shout outs to other movies. They
Yes.
reference
Yes.
movies in the movie, and it's two movie guys. It's like you can
Mhm.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he's quoting things, and then he just kind of looks at him. That's this movie. It's like, yeah,
Yes. Yeah, they even were you would see memorabilia from other movies, like a sport like a stuntman jacket that would have the name of a movie in the background. You like all that kind of stuff is fantastic. I loved it.
yeah. So guys, check out the Fall Guy if you haven't seen it yet. It did pretty well at the box office as well.
Mhm.
So that was my number 4.
Yeah.
Alrighty, here we go with Ricardo's number 4.
Smile 2, man. Listen, this made it so high because the
Yeah.
experience that I had in the theater was so much fun. This was a roller coaster, okay? The sound design had me shooketh in the theater because I legitimately never jumped so many times in a single movie than I did with Smile 2. And it wasn't the type of jump scare that when I came home, I was scared to walk around my house or anything at night. It was just in the moment. They were hitting me so hard with these jump scares that I was jumping and then having that laugh, like that laugh, that immediate
Right.
laugh afterwards. The theater had tons of people in it and people were laughing, but not laughing at the movie. They were laughing at themselves for jumping, and that made the experience so much fun. There was a guy that audibly yelled a profanity because he got
Right.
scared so bad. And I remember, and we were laughing, and it became like a game. Like I remember going, okay, Rick, don't jump anymore. Don't jump anymore. And I would try to hold on, and it still got me. Naomi Scott crushes it in this movie,
Awesome.
man. If you weren't a fan of Naomi Scott prior to this movie, you have to be following. Now, Naomi Scott, we have seen in other films, and we've actually seen her in other films where she uses her voice. She played Jasmine in the live
Yes.
action Aladdin, where she got to sing. Fantastic singer. In this film, it was so awesome that Naomi Scott actually made tracks to promote as that character for the movie. And I remember being in the movie like, these songs are pretty catchy, and looking them up, and this was something that she did prior to the film. She worked with producers, they worked in the studio, they made songs, and that was so great. And it's actually her singing and performing So we've got this amazing performance from her as this pop star, as this Sky Riley pop star. And then we have this a great performance from her. And obviously, we're back talking about, mental health. We're dealing with mental
Yes.
health. We have this monster that feeds off of this negativity and off trauma. And the first movie works in great aspect because of that. And the first movie is smaller, but the second movie, my comparison when I was telling people about it was Terminator 2 versus Terminator 1. I'm not saying it's Terminator 2, but what I'm saying is in comparison to the first movie, it just felt that much bigger, where T2 feels like a much bigger movie than T1. You can debate which one you like more. It just feels bigger. It feels more like a blockbuster than one did. This is what that felt like. Smile 2 felt like the studio was really confident and said, here's more money, make it bigger, make it more aggressive, and make it more exciting, and make it more brutal. This movie, when it came to a lot of the death scenes, was way more brutal.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, oh my God. Like, again, that was a part of the fun experience, just being how shocking the movie was. And the movie does this great job of keeping us on our toes. We're not sure what's going on. We're not sure what's real. When the movie was over, I've even had pleasant debates with people like, oh, when do you think this happens? Do you think this actually happened? Do you think it plays mind games with the viewers? And that was awesome. And again, it sets up something for a possible Smile 3. And I hope we get it. But it ranks so high for me because it's a sequel, that I love the first one so much. You already have some competition. I'm like, oh man, can it live up to the hype? Can it be as good as one? And I'm happy to say that I enjoy this more than one, just because of the fun aspect of how much of a good time I had, laughing, jumping. I was so eager to tell everyone about it. The sound design is amazing. The performances are amazing. Again, we get some great mixture of VFX with great practical designs again, and it's great. So I had to give it so much love, and I hope they make Smile 3, man, because I adored Smile 2.
All righty. Yeah, just a quick shout out to Naomi Scott. Like, it doesn't work without her. What a
No,
talented
absolutely.
performer. Like, she can act, she can sing, she can dance. And she just gave it her all
Yeah.
for this movie, and it doesn't work without her. A lot of jump scares.
Lot of
I think a lot of people talk about the one scene involving choreography. And that scene is well done.
Very. It's one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
Yeah, and then to your point, we have a horror movie that focuses on mental health,
Yeah, dude.
and I'm like, hey, like, what's more scarier, than that? A real life situation that people have to deal with every day,
Yeah.
So, all righty. We are now in the top 3.
Whoo.
And my top 3, my number 3 is Inside Out 2.
Inside Out 2, baby.
Inside Out 2. Alrighty. So I loved the first Inside Out. Loved it. It ended up winning Best Animated Picture. And Best Animated Feature. It also, I think it was nominated for Best Screenplay as well. So Inside Out 2 is nominated for Best Animated Feature as well at the Oscars. It's the only one it's nominated for. This was just it's high. It's high for me. I know it's
good.
It's number 3, but
it's so good.
So it's just become kind of a trope now that Pixar just wants to make you cry. And but you know what? You just lean into it sometimes. You know what? This is an emotional movie, so I'm gonna feel the emotions for this movie. And I just finished talking about just the social commentary on mental health and Smile 2, and they just continue that with Inside Out 2. They tapped into it a little bit with part 1, and now with part 2, oh no, we're gonna put anxiety right to the forefront. Like, this is something all of you deal with every single day. And I thought it was just really well done. I really enjoyed this movie. I went back and forth on, like, is it going to be your number 2? Is it going to be your number 4? Is it going to be, I knew it wasn't going to be my number 1, but then it was just deciding where it was going to land for me. So for me, Inside Out 2, that I just really love this movie. And I gotta drop this line here. Joy says this line that had me in
Oh yeah,
tears in the
yeah.
movie. I cried. I don't know how to stop anxiety. Maybe that's what happens when you grow up. You feel less joy.
Ah, bro, that hurt. It hurt.
Gut punch. Just
Absolutely hurt.
big gut punch, but great movie. And then also just, all of the emotions having their own personalities and character
Yeah.
traits. And we're continuing to see, I think her name is Riley. We're seeing
Yes.
Riley grow up now, and I'm ready for Inside Out 3.
Yeah, I said the same thing. I was like, listen, guys, we can make an Inside Out 3. We absolutely can. Her graduating high school, going into that world, I can't wait to explore it. I had a pleasant experience with this movie as well. I actually got to see this in theaters with my daughter, and that's always a
Aw,
fun experience. That's always a
nice.
great thing. And I'm watching it and I'm getting a different perspective than she is. You know what I mean? She's not in tune with her emotions just yet. You know, she doesn't really understand the weight of something like anxiety. And I'm sure that she will as she gets older, and I'm sure she'll get to rewatch this and get a whole new perspective, which is what I love about these movies. And I thought that they handled anxiety really, really well. And you have that one scene in the final act of the of Riley dealing with anxiety, and
Right.
it was quite emotional. And I think that they handled it very well, and that's something that I give credit to Pixar and to Inside Out, is that they find a way to do these things in a way that is extremely relatable and something that we completely understand, and they hit the mark. So I'm that it is very high, but that's incredible that it's high, and I love it.
Yeah. All right. We have Ricardo's number 3 now.
Yes, yes. We're in the epic category now. We're going to epics now. That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. We're going to Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scar Giver, the director's cut. I have to make sure I reiterate the director's cut, because obviously we've discussed this in the past that Netflix kind of had this move of doing like these PG-13 versions. We're not going to get into that right now. But the director's cut, the full uncut version of this movie, is everything that I love about sci-fi movies and epics. We had this great epic space genre with you know you have your villains in space who want to control everything. You have this small town of people that are just standing up for what's theirs with these warriors, and you had these great dynamics, great visual effects. We've talked about this. When it comes to visuals, Zach is an artist, right? Like when it comes to
Right.
visuals, like it's no secret that Zach was into painting and photography. He knows how to capture a beautiful image. And I think that Zack Snyder has constantly showed, at least myself, that when you get out of Zach's way and you just let Zach make the movie that he sets out to make, he can make something quote unquote epic. And this was epic. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I've seen every version, right? So we've seen Rebel Moon Part 1, Part 2, the original releases, as well as the director's cuts. And I have been very outspoken that the director's cuts are way better. And I felt that should have been the only cuts that have been released. That's a conversation for another day. But I will say that I enjoyed it. These movies are not short either. These are not short movies.
Yeah.
These are relatively long movies. And I've seen this movie 4 times. I've seen it 4 times throughout the year when it came out. And it's one of those movies that I know I'm going to watch again and again and again, depending on what day it is. Like, hey, let's put on some Rebel Moon. I enjoy 1 as well, but there was something about Part 2, man. Like Part 2 was the war movie. It was everything built up to this moment, and we had this 2-hour, 3-hour plus movie of just epicness. So it ranked pretty high, but I was happy with it.
All right. So once again, no surprise, we love Zack Snyder, and this was his original treatment for Star Wars.
Yeah, dude.
It was his treatment for Star Wars, so then he just converted it to an original movie. So admittedly, I only got to watch the original versions of Part 1 and Part 2, and I was not a fan, but I didn't get to see the director's cuts yet. So when I get a chance, I will sit down and I will be contacting Ricardo. And who knows?
I'll be waiting. I'll be waiting.
We'd have a little filmography section on our channel if you see it. And the Rebel Moon movies aren't there yet, as far as breakdowns go. So we have some catching up to do as far as that goes. So we can put those on there. So
we will only break down the director's cut. That is a guarantee.
Absolutely.
That's all we're breaking down. Because again,
absolutely.
like you with the original cuts, we were both kind of just like,
Right.
I don't know. I don't know. So yeah.
Yeah. So, but shout out to Zack Snyder. Always a pleasure. And I am looking forward to seeing what he does next. He hasn't
Oh
said
yeah.
anything about what he's going to do next. So good job giving some love to Zack Snyder. All righty. We have now
Let's
arrived
get
at
into
my
it.
number 2 movie.
All right, now. Oh, all right, yeah. I ain't gonna say anything. I'm waiting. I'm waiting.
Okay.
I'm curious. I was like, oh, it could be this or this. And I'm like, no, I'm not gonna do that. I'm just
All
gonna wait.
right. So this is my number 2 movie. And I'm not gonna make anybody wait. Here you go. It's Rebel Ridge.
Yeah, bro.
It's
Rebel Ridge
Rebel
is so
Ridge.
good, bro. It's so good.
Rebel Ridge. I
So
could
good.
not stop talking about this movie.
Yep.
So forgive me if I'm incorrect, but it's an original.
Yeah,
So
as far as I know.
I had to rank it high as far as being original. I was just shocked. Why is this movie not in the
Wow.
movie theater? Why
Yeah.
is this
Yeah.
movie not in the movie theater? We have Aaron Pierre with this incredible look, incredible
Dude, he's
screen presence. Just such a BA character, and you see the way he carries himself, and
yes.
you're just waiting for these action scenes, these fight sequences, like he's gonna unload, but he's
Yeah.
holding back until he doesn't anymore.
It's so good.
And I love that aspect of the de-escalation. We
Mhm.
don't have to blow everybody away
Yeah.
just to, you know, de-escalate things. I heard somebody say this was probably Anna Sophia Robb's best performance.
Okay.
And for me, it's up there. It's definitely one of her best performances. I've seen her in a couple things that I really enjoyed,
yeah.
but as far as her performance goes, but yeah, one of her best. But just I read online that this was Aaron Pierre's audition for Green Lantern.
I'm telling you, that's why I said it. Like when they cast him, it was like, yeah, I get it. I get it.
Yeah, and let's just put it out there. This was a social commentary on the police,
Yeah.
and the the judicial system at times,
Mhm.
how it can be. And I thought that they handled that well, but
Yes.
just so much action, just great dialogue. Like, oh, there's like an intense
Dude.
scene between
Yeah.
him and the sheriff, and he
Yes.
kind of giggles. He's
It's
like,
it's they're outside talking to each other.
yeah.
It's so good.
It's a great scene. We are gonna do a breakdown for this one day.
Oh, we have to. We have to.
It's so good, but I'm just shocked that a movie this awesome wasn't able to get like a wide release,
I am sad about that because I do think this would have done well. I think that based on what we've seen with the response from critics and audiences alike, I think the word of mouth would have really helped this movie. So, like, let's say the first opening weekend does okay, this movie would have had legs because I could not stop seeing the praise. And I'm like, man, what is this movie? So, just out of curiosity, I think it would have done well. And again, Aaron Pierre is a star. And I think that would have translated. And I think because he was a name that I did not know before this movie. And after the film's release, I kept seeing his name spoken about amongst people, peers, social media, etc. And had this been the theaters, I think that would have happened. That would have translated as well. It is unfortunate it didn't get to happen, but at least now he's blowing up, for a better term. And I do think that the de-escalation that we've both brought up helps the movie stand apart because again, you kind of expect the movie to go a certain way. You're kind of like, okay, we know what's going to happen here. This is going to happen. He's going to do this. And when you get something different, it helps the movie stand out, and it helped Aaron stand out. Dude's a star. I am blown away in the best way that it's it's number 2 for you. That is such praise, and I'm so happy that it's there. First of all, I'm happy that it's both in our top 10. I have to put it out. I'm very happy that it's in both of our top 10s, as it should be. If anyone hasn't seen it, strongly recommend Rebel Ridge.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to the director. We have Jeremy Saulnier. The only other movie that someone may or may not know would be Green Room, which I haven't seen. So now
I have seen that.
So he directed that. Anton Yelchin.
What? Yes.
Yeah, Yelkin's in that.
Worth a watch. Worth a watch.
Shout out to rest in peace, Anton Yelkin. He's in that. So I'll check out Green Room. So here's the thing. Rarely will something hit Netflix and the theaters at the same time. So that means Saulnier couldn't get a studio to get behind this movie.
Yeah.
So then Netflix was like, all right, you know how they do, just go ahead.
Yep.
And he was able to make an awesome movie. So obviously, once that happens, chances of it hitting the theater are slim to none because it's now
Yeah.
Netflix is the main people. Um, Don Johnson is great
Oh yeah.
as the chief. And I just can't stop talking about Aaron Pierre. Just such
Oh
a,
yeah.
a great screen presence. What a great actor. Like, I can't wait to see what
Absolutely.
he does next. Um, and then for me, I've just been rewarding originals more and more as I get
Mhm.
older and more mature as a film, as a cinephile. And for me,
Yeah.
it's just because of all those factors together. Yes, it is my number 2 movie of the
That's a
year.
pick, bro.
Yeah.
Heck yeah, I love it.
Alrighty. So now we have Ricardo's number 2.
Yes, boy. We got number 2 now.
All right.
My number 2 for the year is Nosferatu, bro.
All right.
Not listen. You know me. There isn't a movie from Robert Eggers that I do not enjoy. I have a soft spot for Robert Eggers, and I love that all his movies are period pieces. I adore that. I've told people so many times, especially in the horror genre, that I miss the horror films that were period pieces because it just helps add so much more dynamic, in my opinion, to the scripts and the stories. And Nosferatu, obviously, everyone knows who Nosferatu is. They've heard of the films, the takes on Dracula, et cetera, et cetera. A gothic tale, love, this, that, tragedy. So I was very excited from the moment they announced it. When they were like, Eggers is working on Nosferatu, and I saw the first trailer. I was like, oh, sign me up. I'm good. Seeing it in the theaters, it was, again, for lack of a better term, it was an experience. I was so happy to be kind of like taken into this world. I love when a director can do that. And I was taken into this world, and we get this great horror piece where at times looks like it looks like I'm looking at a painting. Like, some of the cinematography in this movie is absolutely breathtaking. And knowing Eggers' filmography, I love when directors kind of look like they're building up, and that's what this film felt like. I was like, wow, I feel like everything Eggers has been doing has built up to the execution of this film as a filmmaker and as a director. And then you had Lily Rose Depp with an insane performance.
Great performance.
Scary performance. She made me uncomfortable in the theater watching, seeing the amount of work she put in, not just with, obviously we talk about acting is all in the eyes, but there are often times where a certain character, their physicality is very important. And she was doing things in this movie that if someone had told me, hey, by the way, they use visual effects to help to get that performance, I'd be like, oh, I would buy that. Like, I could buy that. And to find out that everything was just organically her blew me away. The fact that I was like, oh wow, she was able to do that. She was able to contort her body this way. She was able to contort her face this way. She was able to do this with her voice. Like, there was a lot. She had the kind of performance that I feel like would absolutely be draining at the end of the day. Like, one of those performances, you're like, oh man, like I would be completely drained and wiped out. I would need 24 hours to recuperate. And great performance. And Nicholas Hoult, dude. Nicholas Hoult is one of those actors that continues to showcase that he's a great, great actor. I feel like Nicholas is still in that position where everyone's waiting for that one role to hit, that everyone's going to recognize his name on the street no matter what. And he's been popular characters like Beast with its massive X-Men IP.
Right.
And he did great in oh god, the movie with Anya Taylor-Joy. I'm blanking on the name of the movie. The cooking movie.
Oh, The Menu.
The Menu, thank you. He's great in The Menu.
Yeah.
Like, he has shown us time and time again, he's a great actor. And this is another performance from him where we get to see just like how good of an actor he is. You got Bill Skarsgård continuing to play these monsters, dude. Like, Bill Skarsgård is so transformative in these roles, and
Right.
I'm sure he may continue to take these types of projects. There's probably something that he really enjoys about it. But the moment you see his character Count Orlok on screen, it was another situation of like, I do not see Bill Skarsgård. I do not hear Bill Skarsgård.
Right.
And I was so taken back, like, wow, that's the same actor. That's the same guy. Does a terrific job. You know what I mean? And he was scary. And I think that's something that often when we have these like Dracula lore films where there's this tragic love story, right? Like you're kind of like, oh, I this character is the villain, but I'm strangely drawn to this character. I'm attracted to this character, right? We've seen that in Dracula before, where Count Orlok, I never got that was what they were doing. Like I was like, no, this is a monster. This is a terrifying being, and I think they did such a good job. Other shout outs, obviously, Aaron Taylor Johnson, and obviously Willem Dafoe. Willem Dafoe and Eggers got a nice little partnership, and it's always nice to see Willem Dafoe return and do something fun. And all in all, just a great experience. Scarier than I thought it was going to be. Not going to lie. Like it was scary. Again, I didn't come home looking over my shoulder, but it was scarier than I thought it was going to be. Probably Eggers, depending on who you ask, might be scariest base because there is some jump scares in here. There is some gore in here. And it's enough to kind of like shake you up a little bit. So definitely number 2. This one battled. This and my number 1 battled, bro. Like this one and my number 1 went back and forth because I was like, okay, and I'll explain why when I announced my number 1. But I was kind of like, oh man, like do I count this over this? Do I count this over this? The experience of this versus that. But it definitely was going to be in my top 5 for sure. And as I was going through and realized it was my number 2, I was like, yeah, that's a great spot for it. I'll definitely own this one on physical copy as well.
Alrighty. So, and shout out to Robert Eggers, just continues to do really well with film. I want to say The Witch.
Yes.
What else? The Lighthouse.
The Lighthouse. Weird comfort movie for me. Weird.
Yeah.
Like I can just put it on in the background and just enjoy it and be like, yeah, I like it.
And then the Northman.
Northman, dude.
Yeah. And now Nosferatu. And now he's talking about doing a werewolf movie next.
Say less. Say less. You got my money.
Yeah.
Say less. He said that it's going to be his darkest film to date, and it's werewolves.
Right. And
say less.
Apparently, he only wants to do period pieces. Like that's his big thing.
And I love that. I absolutely adore that. I need more period pieces in my life.
Right. Before I announced my number 2, were you thinking that? Obviously, the movie I haven't announced yet. Were you thinking that maybe that was my number 2, or one of your?
I thought that. I thought it was going to battle another movie. I was like, this is going to be the battle.
And then you were wondering whatever he doesn't name.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. And then it was a surprise when you saw what my number 2
and
movie
I was like,
was.
oh, Rebel Ridge is there.
Yeah.
Like, okay,
Rebel Ridge. Yeah. So, alrighty, folks. This is the moment that you've all been waiting for. This is the Panel Bros official number 1 movie. I'm announcing it like that because for the 3rd consecutive year, we have the same number 1 movie. I'm going to do a little recap here. For 2022, we had Everything Everywhere All at Once. For 2023, we had Oppenheimer.
Yes.
And now here is our 3rd consecutive year. If you've been paying attention, this should be no surprise to you. So here we go. The Panel Bros official number 1 movie of 2024. Dune Part 2.
Listen, I'm gonna let you rave for a second, but I want people to know that we do not discuss our top 10s with each other.
Correct.
We do not. So I want people to know that we do not set this up. We do not make it a point to be like, hey, let's match our number 1s. Like, no, you make your list. I make my list. After that, when we get ready to do our thing, I'm like, all right, here's our information. But we at no point talk to each other about what our lists are going to be. And we try to make it as surprise as possible. So, it's pretty awesome that we've done it 3 times. And with what better movie than Dune 2?
Yeah, absolutely. So this year, we don't talk about the list. I had to see Ricardo's list so I can do the screen shares here. But as far as discussing where we're going to rank them or anything, no, we don't do any of that because we want to save that for you guys, for the channel. Ricardo has decided to not see my list ahead of time because he wants to be surprised.
I'm like, don't show me. I'm like, don't show me at all.
And I think that's what's made our top 10s so exciting because we don't talk about it until we, get on the air here. Guys, if you've been following along, we just recently did the filmography of Denis Villeneuve, and we stopped at Dune Part 2. And if you want to know how much we love this movie, just go back.
Yeah, go watch
that breakdown.
Go watch that
for Dune Part 2. But it's been nominated for 5 Oscars. We have Best Picture, Best Cinematography, Best Production Design, Best Sound, Best Visual Effects. That is a disappointment to us, as you know. Because Dune Part 1 got 10 nominations and
Yeah.
it walked away with 6 Oscars. It made a splash that year
Oh yeah, it did.
at the Oscars. But for me, so here we go. It's an IP. Yes, I recognize that. It's based on a book. I recognize that. It's been done before. I recognize that. But Denis is the man. You
Yeah,
know,
dude.
he just he delivered what I looked it up. It's categorized as an epic science fiction space opera.
And
Like
it justifiably so.
just such an amazing movie, some great performances. We rave about Timothy Chalamet. He's got some incredible scenes. The one monologue in the middle of the movie,
Oh yeah.
in particular, but there's just so much action. The Dune universe that Denis has created for us is just so um uh it's just so immersive. You know, there's just we talk about this term world building, and that's what he does when you watch the Dune movie. So for me, just anytime, and Dune came out early in their year too. You
Oh yeah,
know,
dude. That was pretty
it
early.
it came out early in the year, but every time I watched another movie, it was like, is Dune better? You know, do I like Dune more than this? And every single time I was like, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And only a couple times I kind of wavered. You know, when I saw Inside Out 2, I was like, man, that was awesome. But
Yeah.
I still like Dune 2 more. And as much as I love Rebel Ridge, I couldn't see it being my number one over
Mhm.
Dune Part 2. You had mentioned Nosferatu. That was the only one that
Yeah, that was the
maybe,
only one that went back
right?
and forth, and the only reason that it played was I started to get into that category in my mind where Dune 2 was a sequel. That was the only
Right.
reason, and I was like, "Oh, well, Dune 2 is a sequel, and 1 is really good." So I'm like, "Man, do I like Dune?" I had to do that thing of like, "Do I like Dune 2 more than Dune 1?" Am I
Right.
measuring like, it became like this battle of an IP, this world that has already been established versus Eggers making his first attempt at Nosferatu. Do I take that into account? Do I take into account the cinematography of Nosferatu? Do I take into account performances, like everything and everything? And they battle. But at the end of it all, Dune 2 was too big in every aspect. If you go down the board and you had a checklist on everything, Dune 2 is just bigger on every single front in comparison to Dune 1 and in comparison to everything else on my list. It just had this massive scope and scale. So to be described as what it was, it absolutely makes sense. And it's one of those movies that I have seen more than once. I will watch time and time again. And it's a movie that excites me to remain in this world. I cannot wait for Dune 3. Hearing the word that, Denis was thinking about taking a break from Dune and continue with another project to kind of just take a break, and deciding, nope, I'm going right back to Dune 3 is extremely exciting as a fan. As you mentioned, we are well aware that this is IP. We are well aware that this has been done before in the sense that there are other Dune films. But Denis does something really special, and you can't help but feel that. You've got amazing performances. The scale is unreal. The scope of this thing, and the lore that he is creating, from the novels and previous works, and just kind of putting the Denis blueprint on it. If that makes any sense, like it feels like a Denis film. Like we're taking this novel, this story that I'm sure many people have read. I've never read the books. I had friends who read the books, and hearing from my friends who have read the books, more often than not, we usually hear, "Oh, the books are better than the movies." The book, like you just tend to hear that. Like people tend to enjoy the books more. And I've had friends that read the Dune books that walked away going, "Nah, man, Dune nailed it. It's perfect. It's everything it needed to be." And that's refreshing, because every once in a while, when it comes to a novel versus a film, you're like, "Oh, well, they left this out. I wish they would have made room for this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera." But Denis just captured it. Even things that we mentioned on the previous panel where we talked about Dune Part 2 in itself, where there were subtle changes from the book that Dune made for the movie specifically that worked so well that no one had a problem. So again, I'm happy that we both had it as our number one. I'm
Yeah.
happy that the streak is on. We're 3-0. We're
Right.
3-0. The streak lives on with the number one spot, and it's kind of hard to just ignore just how epic and amazing that movie is. It would be a travesty not to have it on the top 10, and it's amazing to have it at number one.
Yeah. Just if you haven't seen it yet, please sit
It's
down
worth
and
it.
well, and if you haven't seen Dune 1, just sit down
Yes.
and watch that, and then watch Dune 2. And we did say this on the air that we felt that Dune 2 was just bigger and
Yeah.
better. That
Yeah.
like they're both amazing. They're
Yeah,
both
absolutely.
absolutely amazing, but just Dune Part 2, just it just bigger, better, just such a grand movie, and phenomenal and more than worthy, of our number one spot here. So,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
alrighty, folks, that was the Panel Bros official top 10 best movies of 2024.
Yeah.
If you could please give us a like, share, and subscribe at the Panel Bros on YouTube. We'd appreciate that. The more likes, shares, and subscribes we get, that will help our reach. If you could please give us a comment below, letting us know how you felt about our top 10 list. Um, do you agree with our number one pick? What would your number one pick be
Yeah.
for 2024? Please let us know. Obviously, we're going to be rooting for Denis at the Oscars. We want to see
Oh yeah.
how many Dune Part 2 gets. It doesn't look like it's probably going to get Best Picture, but obviously we're just rooting for the movie to just get recognized even more. And we're rooting for a couple people, to
Oh yeah,
get
for sure.
to get some wins as well along the way. And I think we're going to have an Oscars reaction video as well. So please stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, thank you so much for tuning in to our top 10 movies of 2024. These lists are so much fun.
Oh yeah, I have
Yeah.
a blast doing these. It's nice to go down my list of movies I've seen throughout the year and see where they stand, and you find surprises. You surprise
Yeah.
yourself when you go, wow, like I remember enjoying this movie, but I didn't realize how much I enjoyed it. Or seeing movies you thought would be higher, not be where you think they would be, and it's just exciting to be able to reflect on those movies.
Ladies and gentlemen, for Ricardo Segura, this is Anderson Marchak saying thank you for coming to the panel.